people are, hating in my comments, I say, bring it on. I love a good debate. And, if I can't find the answer to your question, then I will research it. I don't know everything, but I have researched a lot on mold, and we, sometimes I'll direct them to the book. It's like, learn more. It's great that people even want to just throw out their opinion out there, and, maybe they're ready to learn something.
Welcome to the Your Peak Life podcast. Let's conquer the summit of life and reach the apex of our potential.
Welcome to another episode of Your Peak Life podcast. DJ Julian Rivera here. Thanks again for tuning in, because at least you are. We just at least know we have one person at least tuning in. But today we have some really important guests. Not one, but we have two. The husband and wife combo. We have Dr. Dianna Stafford and Sir Andrew Stafford in the house, as long as Mr. Edgar the Sphere Munoz. What's up, y'all? How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Of course. I appreciate you. Andrew, we were talking about this huge piece of land you own on the moon. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, on the moon.
Yeah, on the moon, literally.
Yeah, I own a star, too.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the acronyms of the star?
The acronym?
Yeah.
Well, it's like Sagittarius, Y or something.
We're making all this up, guys. Just trying to figure this out as we're going along.
Yeah,
but,
wait, we could do this?
Right. But really today, one thing that I love about them as well is that a few years ago, first off, her and I went to high school together. We didn't even know this, right? We went to the same high school, same alma mater. And then we ended up linking up, and she started talking about, one, she's a doctor by trade. Like, seriously, she's a doctor. But her specialty is in, I'm going to say this wrong, but is in mold.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yeah, mold illness.
Mold
Exactly.
illness. But she really wanted to start growing a channel to spread awareness of just, really, there's no pros on this and the cons of everything mold. And she started this, and now she's blowing up. I just want to be very clear on a lot of the channels, on TikTok, the IGs, everything. And the cool thing is that she's educating so many people out there, is that she's getting a lot of individuals that are reaching out to her. She's reaching out to them, and a lot of collaboration, not just locally, but nationally, has really been happening, because that's what you wanted to do. When we met, you said, this is what I'm going to do. And now you're doing this. So tell us a little bit about the journey on where you are right now, and then how Andrew has been supportive this entire time.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Julian. And I love that whenever we realized that we, had gone to high school together and didn't even know it. And now we both live in the area, because we've lived all over, and we came back to the area. And it's so great to just have that connection and that history. So I am a conventionally trained MD. I worked in the regular medical system for years. I did primary care, and it was all well and good until I realized that I wasn't really helping people the way I wanted to, because I was just kind of going through the day and doing the usual prescription for, you have X thing and you get Y prescription, and then, 5 minutes, okay, next patient.
Right.
So it doesn't really solve anyone's problems for good. So then you just keep coming back because you got your symptom, but then it was gone for a few weeks, and now you're back. So I really started getting into functional health, and mold came about because, we had a mold exposure, a pretty significant one at one of our rental homes that we lived in a few years ago. And we all had a variety of different symptoms, and through a functional med workup that we got for Andrew, we realized that he had high mold toxins in his urine, because you can actually test for that, which is not done in the regular medical system at all whatsoever. They don't order that test.
Hold on, stop right there. So you were working in, let's just call it the functional medical space, for a very long time, and then you ended up graduating to this because you guys had an issue, like an actual problem all of you and your family were experiencing at a rental property?
Well, so I was still in conventional at that point, actually. I was not even in the functional med space yet, but I wanted to kind of transition to that functional integratives, pick your term, make sure like natural med / your dietary and everything was dialed in, and not just do this regular, primary care model. But that was kind of the impetus to really just go ahead with it, because that was mold. Because even though, Andrew already was dealing with a lot of like gut issues, for example, mold just really exacerbated those. And so we didn't even realize that it was the mold, because it was the classic, painted over, sort of cleaned up, quote unquote, mold situation where it really wasn't gotten rid of or removed. So it was still affecting our family. We were planning on moving anyway. It was just a rental. and the symptoms got better over time. For some of us, Andrew had to do a more significant protocol to heal his, and we also had to do a detox for our son. But mold, I said, you know what, I really have to include mold in my practice because we've had this experience, and it's completely being missed by regular doctors and the medical system. You know, insurance doesn't cover it, and it's a huge issue. So yeah.
One question is does it affect individuals differently as far as, like, if me and Julian living in the same house, maybe it may affect him more than me?
Absolutely. You are absolutely correct. It affects or can affect everyone differently. Mold likes to sort of prey on your weaknesses. So if you're prone to, say, I was prone to mental health issues, and so I just got extremely depressed and anxious in that home when we had that significant mold exposure. Andrew's prone to gut issues, so he just got worsening gut issues. And then our older daughter, she was an infant at the time, and she just had trouble sleeping in the house. You know, we had to take her out of the house to fall asleep, things like that. So yes, everyone can be affected differently, and that's one of the main reasons why people get gaslit a lot about mold, because they go in and like the whole family has different symptoms. And so the doctor says, okay, well, it can't be like one thing causing all those different symptoms, but it can be.
So when you guys finally figured out and did the testing and find out, okay, you guys have mold issues, right, in your body, the toxins are there, do you then turn around and hire a contractor or an inspector or mold inspector? Like, how did you figure out it was obviously in the house and not at work or whatever?
Yeah, so great question. So for us, the timing was a little bit different because we had already moved. So because we were just renting for a certain amount of time, and so we were already out of that house. We had to retroactively figured out there was this mold. Okay, now we have mold toxins. We knew there was mold in that house.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the landlord had told us, and my doctor community, we'd all decided that it was fine. It wasn't that wasn't causing any issues. So we just kind of looked back and connected it thereafter. So we didn't have to deal with that. Thankfully, we did end up then testing our home that we were living in at that time after we got that testing.
We did some simple testing. Well, we tested Danny's house a little bit using like mold testing kits that we got on Amazon, right?
Oh, okay.
So just one of the generic ones that you can get, and you send it off to a lab and you get some results back. And that showed pretty high mold levels. But that was right at the tail end of us living in that house. And then once we moved to California, we also did that testing, and we did some simple testing with agar plates, which is just like a Petri dish with sugar solution in there, just to culture mold that's available. And we actually found in San Diego, because the humidity is so low, that mold doesn't really grow in the house. And so none of the agar plates that were in the house tested positive for mold, but the ones that I put in the garage did.
So then now, knowing you live in Hampton Roads, what's it called, Virginia Beach, because that's what Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, all the areas, we're in a very high moisture area, right? I mean, crawl space inside, we're underwater. Let's just put it what it is. We're under sea level out here. So seeing that you're a little more above sea level out here, what would you recommend, let's just say, a home buyer do if they're buying a house pre-2000, before the turn of the century? Doesn't mean that there's mold in it, but just to ensure that they're in a position where they can be safe for their family.
Yeah, so when looking for a new place, I would say it doesn't matter what year it was built. There can be mold in brand new homes, because we drive past these homes that are half built and they're exposed to the elements. So, and then, then another layer gets put on top of that. If there's mold there, it can continue to grow and it's not noticed, and then you just go on, and this shiny new house could have mold hidden behind the walls. That's
literally every brand new house, because it's going to rain at some point in time with the building. Yeah.
So not to scare people, but it is really common. So if you're looking for a new place, I would say if you can take a moisture meter around, or have, go and see, if you don't see any mold, that's great. Of course, if you see an actual mold issue, I would not consider that a place that I would want to breathe the air in all the time, personally. But moisture meters can help, that you can kind of put on the wall and just kind of, even incognito, see, oh, well, there's a moisture issue there. There's a couple like areas, under the sink in a bathroom, maybe a good idea to check. Otherwise, you can ask about any mold history from the home or any water damage history, because if there's been a significant water damage event, then the likelihood that, and ask following questions like, what was done about that? Was it remediated? What was done after that water damage event? Make sure if there has been a water damage event that it was taken care of afterwards, because if it's kind of like, oh, well, it wasn't that big of a deal, well, red flag. So, and then making sure there's a good way to keep the humidity down in the house. Like, does the house have good ventilation? Can you, have fans? Like if you open the window, is there an area where there's a lot of stagnant air? Because that's also a problem for mold growth. Mold loves that. Like if you have no air circulation in a room, for example, like you need to figure out how you're going to do that and keep the humidity less than 50% is ideal for mold growth. I mean, super ideal would be to bring in a mold assessor and assess a place prior to purchasing it. Not realistic in some cases or many cases. However, that would be the ideal.
With that being said, every house typically, you need to do two things. One is voluntary, but we always recommend they do it, and one has to happen. So we have the home inspection. There's three. Home inspection, then we have the termite and moisture inspection that has to happen, and then we have the appraisal that has to happen. That's the only way you're gonna get a loan approved. But the home inspection, some people waive it. Some people do it for info only, which is still the full blown. And then some people you can actually negotiate the repairs, which that's the goal and what we're always trying to get for our clients. However, even if we go through that entire thing and everything checks the boxes, there is a place on the picker that says other inspections. And we can put mold inspection. We can put whatever inspection on there. To be fair, obviously it has to be agreeable on both sides. But what if everything passes during that time and then after the fact, 6 months later, you find out I've been living with X amount of moisture in my house or mold, what can I do to fix it? Like, how can I make sure that I'm not going to go backwards and try to sue the seller? They probably had no idea and was living there for a while. But what can I do to improve that, knowing that I'm living in this situation, it's behind walls, I'm not tearing all these walls out or whatever. I just don't want to go through that. What would be the next best step just to continue to live in that house?
Yeah, and what I've heard, the best thing to do is put bleach on it.
Oh, no.
That is true. Yes, just throw it on. Yeah.
This is very controversial still. Every time I post on that, the comment section is golden because people are like very, very adamant that it's the best thing to do for mold, for whatever reason. Yeah. But it's really not. Everyone who's listening to this can, be smarter and not use bleach on mold because of a few reasons, including that it particularly irritates mold when you put bleach on it, and mold will put off more toxins. It's also a water-based product. So if you're putting a bunch of bleach on mold or any really large amount of water onto mold, it's just going to grow more. And oftentimes it doesn't get at like the root of, if you see a little bit of mold, then there may be more hidden mold, and then it doesn't get all of that. So then that will just keep growing and you just got like a little bit on the surface. So bleach is not the best. More natural kind of, we have in our book, which we may talk about, Conquering Mold, we talk about some better options. There's like vinegar, tea tree oil is really strong antifungal. Lots of like natural substances can also help with actually cleaning up mold if you need to do that. So when you're saying, if the person says, okay, I'm not going to remediate this, like it's too much to kind of tear out the walls and everything like that, there's so many, risk benefits, cost benefits, to be analyzed there. But if someone's just trying to kind of minimize their exposure, I would go back to dehumidifiers, ventilating the space, air purifiers help, getting those mold toxins, which are invisible, and the mold spores out of the air. And if it's truly affecting your health, may want to reconsider, not remediating it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, obviously we look at a ton of houses, different houses, new, old, whatever. And the common areas we see it, right, growing is around the tub, under the sink, like you said, that's where you'll see it, or in the garage in some corner. Obviously, clients want to test that. And I've only had it happen once where, okay, the mold was, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but they have to send a test for us to Richmond. Richmond has to do their thing, and then we finally have to get the test results back, and then they give whatever company is going to remediate the issue and fix the issue, and then another test goes out. And this can take weeks.
Yes. Yeah. It's
weeks. And for normal real estate side, sellers. There's a lot of things that are going to affect the transaction. One is the seller may not want to wait that long for you to do that. Number two is obviously everybody's dealing with interest rates and they're trying to lock in their interest rates. Those things go away. Now, whose fault is that? The buyer because he wanted to get this tested, or the seller because, they didn't take care of an issue that was already there. But then money comes into play, right? Who's going to pay for that lock and things like that? It does get a little squirrely, but obviously I'm not going to tell somebody just to buy a house to buy it because they like it, and you're going to be living in danger.
But it sounds like there's the likelihood, though, to your point, that every house has mold in it in some way. It's just different levels.
I would agree.
Well, not just that. So drywall is predominantly made of pulped wood, and mold, its ecological role in the environment is a decomposer. And so nearly all drywall that has had any type of environmental exposure, has been put up by developers. The mold spores will travel throughout the home. They'll get stuck and embedded in the drywall. And then anytime the humidity or the conditions are right, the mold will start growing, and it will grow incrementally over time. And so nearly every home that exists, and some of her friends who are mold testers, will find, mold positive areas in even brand new homes or relatively new homes like ours, right?
Exactly.
What is the common mold types that you would see?
Yeah, so some of the most common molds are aspergillus. So people think about black mold, and there's lots of different types of even black mold. I mean, there's so many different types of mold. So aspergillus, penicillium are two really common molds that we see. There's Stachybotrys, which is the classic black mold, which is very toxic even at low levels. But aspergillus can also be black. So we say or like to remind people that it's not just black mold and the color doesn't necessarily correlate. It's how much mold is there and how sensitive are you to the mold. So it's those two variables that are the most important. So there's lots of different types of mold, Chaetomium, Fusarium, there's so many different families and genus of mold, outdoor and indoor, but it just depends on those factors.
Yeah, and to contextualize this a little bit more, you're exposed to mold on a daily basis. We're being exposed to mold in the air that we breathe right now, and especially if we go for a walk through the woods or some other area that is, in nature, especially in this area because we have a great deal of swampland everywhere.
Right.
You're breathing in hundreds of or thousands or even potentially millions in some areas of mold spores, and you generally don't get sick. Sometimes you have an immune response and you'll sneeze or cough or whatever, right? But most of us don't get sick. It's really in indoor spaces where the air is not circulating, like she was talking about, or where the mold is very proximally close to where you are, right? So it's in the wall behind your bed. That tends to be where people get very sick. Because then it's about the quantity of exposure, right? If I'm breathing in, 1,000 mold spores while I'm going for a walk, that's not a big deal. My nose will clear it out. The hairs in our sinuses are actually charged, so it actually cling, the mold spores will cling to it. But when we're laying in bed and there's mold coming out of the wall and we're exposed to millions of these mold spores, and then our body has no time to actually detox and process them out because we're just being continuously exposed, that's when it accumulates and can cause disease.
Interesting.
And then for you, were you in this by trade or?
No, so I have a very extensive health history.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with 5 autoimmune diseases.
Okay.
And the journey through figuring out what the root causes were for all of them included mold as a big part of that picture. And then once I did some mold treatment, that actually allowed my body to start healing again because I was able to detoxify really well and then, continue on that healing process. And that was, somewhat of what got Dianna interested in and knowledgeable about the space. Was she and I got married 11 years ago, and she saw me going through this journey of healing myself from autoimmune disease. And then she's like, hey, where's the gap between what I'm doing now as a conventional doctor and what my husband's doing to help himself from otherwise incurable autoimmune disease?
Because the conventional system didn't help you very much.
Yeah, I've seen over 50 doctors. And
Wow.
Okay.
So serious question on this one. If when men start going bald, is there a chance that mold can start growing in place of hair, or is it just stay like that?
Mold can start growing in place of hair. Are you talking like?
I'm trying to help my friend Edgar here.
He has a one joke every episode.
Oh man. So you're picturing like a Chia Pet situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was getting
mold.
at.
And then you look at his Amazon hairline. It's like there's definitely mold and humidity in that.
So, but all jokes aside, though, have you guys seen the videos where it's like mold can grow in your hair? So you may actually be better off.
Oh, okay. I'm shaving my beard and my eyebrows now
flip
too.
side, you may
Might as
actually
well.
be better off.
Barely
There's
see
less
it.
of a chance for mold in your hair because of your hair. Say you take a shower and if I were to like put my hair back and my hair is still wet and I'm in like this really moldy place, mold can grow.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
no, like I look at Julian, and it's like those movies where they're out to sea and they finally spot land after being in the ocean for weeks, and it's like there it is.
Yeah.
To be fair, I keep telling him to go to Turkey and get hair plugs, but he doesn't want to listen to me. Maybe in this scenario, he's
okay.
avoiding mold. So that's
I'm
a really
okay.
good
There
point.
you go.
Hold on, changing the subject before the episode.
Sure.
So you're from California
Yeah. So,
originally? Okay, Southern California.
yeah, Redlands. Yeah, exactly.
And which is all new construction out there, right? It's crazy.
I haven't been there since I was a young child, so
You
I-
won't
no
recognize
idea.
it. Got it. Okay, so how did your journey go to get you here to Virginia? I mean, and where did you guys meet?
Yeah, so we actually met up in Northern Virginia. But
Stafford? Haha. No, I'm kidding.
that's actually
Well-
named after my family. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, one of my, I'm a descendant of, one of my ancestors was a part owner of the railroad that went through that area.
Okay.
And that's typically how they named, counties and towns were
Yeah.
after,
makes sense.
prominent business people in the area. And so that's how it got its name.
How about
Interesting.
Stafford and the Bay Area?
No, Stafford, Virginia. It's Northern
Oh,
Virginia.
Stafford.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Virginia.
okay.
Yeah, Northern Virginia.
Yeah, but my dad was in the Air Force, and then I was in the Air Force briefly
Okay.
and traveled all over and ended up in D.C. And this was about 12 years ago. And I, was dating at the time, and Dianna was in medical school, and we met and, went on a couple of dates and then started getting more serious and, ended up getting married. And
Okay.
then we were living in Maryland for a while, which is where we had the mold infested house. And we left and went to San Diego. I mean, I had brought her out there a few times to, meet my relatives out there and to check out the area. And she decided to, she would come along on the adventure out to San Diego. And so we were out there for about 4 years. But while we were out there, we had tried getting our parents on both sides to come out and kind of like, help with the kids and, spend time there and everything. But my parents are far too conservative to do that. And her parents are, really tied into the community, especially like their religious community. And so they just, wouldn't make the plunge
Got
and
it.
join us out there. And so we had our third kid, Annabelle, and it was starting to get a lot for just the two of us to handle without any familial support.
Yep.
And so we talked about it for a little while and then finally decided to move back to Virginia Beach and give it a shot here. And
Okay.
been here for 2.5 years now. So
Oh, okay.
Well, I know she
and a
likes
half
it.
years.
So how do you like it so far? Because she went to school here. So
yeah, I mean, I've lived in Virginia
yeah.
for 10 years.
Okay.
Total. So like I enjoy Virginia. I enjoy the area in general. I prefer, the warmer climate of, Virginia and Southern as opposed to, something like Boston where it's
Yeah.
frigid
I
and
agree.
snowy all the time.
Right.
But yeah, it's not bad. I really like, Sandbridge Beach, the local beach, just going there and, being able to run on the beach and not have like a huge crowd of like the boardwalk and everything. And I like having, a big military community because I have, military background.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
a lot of the work that I do, works with military people,
Right.
like doing cybersecurity and other tech stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, it's really
You definitely are in the hub for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And then now being back home, you being for 2.5 years, kind of nostalgic, right? Like a lot of the things that you've seen. Remember where Reby was, and you've seen where it is now. A lot of cool things have opened up. We have like 3 buildings that make our downtown in Virginia Beach. Maybe 4 in 2 years. That'll be great. But
There you go.
we're expanding, and I can see us expanding faster, which is really good, especially with things at the oceanfront opening and everything. But expansion comes with a lot of technology, and a lot of technology, if you use it the right way, like you guys are, you're spreading the awareness of just this, like mold in general, because not everybody knows this. And one of my favorite videos of yours, by the way, and I think it came out a while ago, it was a poop video. Okay. I think this one, you got a lot of views on this one, to be clear. Yes. Tell us about that one and just where it came from. And did you think it was going to go as viral as this shit did? No pun intended.
So that was actually the first time I hit 1 million views, which was a little over a year ago now. So it was, and the caption when I posted it the first time was the spring break art project, because literally my kids helped me make the samples for that video.
The poop samples.
We got this very realistic brown clay. It's not Play-Doh, it's like artist clay.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So I was making it. It's an educational video about what should your bowel movements look like, and if you have this kind of bowel movement, great job, you're doing wonderfully. Keep up the great work. And if you have this kind of really loose diarrhea situation going on, then probably have some inflammation in your gut. And if you've got constipation and you're trying to poop out these hard pellets, then, here's some tips for that. So it's like a lot of information in a little less than a minute. And I have 7 different, because it's based on something called the Bristol Stool Scale, which you want to stay kind of in the middle of that scale with your bowel movements, like soft yet formed. But there's a whole range, of course, of where you can be on there, and it can depend on the day. So I had 7 different samples that I showed on a tray, as if I were serving it up, and it was really fun to see, kind of that blow up really quickly, and I had a lot of fun with it. I actually knew it was going to do well because I had done a lot of research on that particular video before I made it. I didn't know how well it would do, but I spent a fair amount of time researching for that one because I knew that was a specific kind of video that did well, but I didn't know how well it would do. And then the one that has gone the most viral was my Candida video, which actually spurred a book. Like, we decided to write Candida Detox last summer quickly based on the fact that video overnight got almost 10 million views, and it got like 12 million views total, but it like broke TikTok overnight.
Nice.
And so, I mean, it was crazy. So we said, we have to write something on this. And Andrew does a lot of the legwork when it comes to our books and kind of the production of those books. And we now have 3 books published. We'd always wanted to write a mold book, but that got paused whenever we decided to do the Candida book. Candida meaning yeast, like yeast that can cause like thrush in the mouth, the white plaque on the tongue. It can cause like yeast infections. It can actually cause a lot of other symptoms too. We all have a little bit of Candida yeast in us, but it can get like overgrown really easily and cause other problems. Especially, it likes to go along with mold. It's a cousin of mold. So like they like to hang out together. So we do, we write books together, and so I guess 2 things on that really quickly. If you want to, test your relationship with your spouse, write a book together.
Yeah. I was gonna ask,
and it's really fun, but it's like a big growth experience.
Right.
That's whenever you say that, that there's like growth experience.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna ask, like, how is that like? Because even something as simple as like my wife does real estate also.
Sure.
And some days we're together, and she's on my phone. There's a bunch of text messages.
Yep.
And I'll say, "Hey, say this, respond this way."
Yep.
And she's taking a while. Now she wants to write it her way, and I'm like, "No, just say that and send it."
Yeah, we've definitely.
And then she's like, "That doesn't make sense." I was like, "I've been doing this." So when it comes to books, obviously you're reading a paragraph or a chapter. I'm guessing you guys are maybe arguing or talking about, or disagreements are coming up as far as the placement of paragraphs or sentences or the chapters.
Yeah, we've had discussions like that. Across the content itself, in terms of like medical accuracy, because one thing about the mold space in particular is there's a great deal of research in a broad sense that isn't specific about specific molds that have specific effects on human beings in the wild. And the reason why is because it's unethical to give human beings a bunch of mycotoxins as part of a lab experiment.
Makes sense.
So a lot of it is, kind of like inferred data or, population level data from, events like Hurricane Katrina and like the water damage to all of the houses in, Louisiana. And so a lot of, the ideas and the treatment within the mold space are based off of many of these larger studies. Because of the undefined nature of some of the variables in the research, there's going to be a lot of difference of opinion in terms of what the outcomes are and what the treatment should be amongst practitioners. And so she and I would discuss that and what the, how much additional contextual information we want to give to these people that are dealing with the issues. Like how much can they understand? How much is good for them to actually know?
Yeah, you're talking to me. Dumb it down, right?
Yeah.
Versus,
it's not a book
I want to
geared
get
toward
doctory with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not geared toward practitioners. Our books thus far have been geared towards general public. So
Good.
I mean, we plan to write one geared toward practitioners too and do courses and stuff on that. But yeah, some people talk about, I don't know what people talk about over dinner, but we like to we like to debate science and talk about supplements and, all that sort of
Or discuss
sciencey
poop videos.
things, or discuss poop videos, strategize the next, poop video over dinner.
It's okay, the kids love it. So,
No, the kids helped with it and they loved that they went viral.
Do you go test like companies? So like back in the day, I did work for a company that we made animal supplements, and we fall under those guidelines. With
He
the
ate them all.
FDA for the FDA as far as gloves, the mask, the whole nine. And do you go test these locations or for mold?
No, yeah. So I don't get
Because
involved.
once it's sealed,
with
it's sealed.
Yeah.
It goes out to the public.
Yeah, no, I don't get involved with kind of the home side that much.
Okay.
But that's why I like to stay in my lane. So I kind of network with, mold assessors,
Okay.
One of whom you met. Like I have a network of people that I've connected with on social media that, I can refer people to.
Okay.
And I'm also in the ICI, which is the International Society for Environmentally Acquired Illnesses. Say that 5 times fast. But ICI, we'll call it. So that is the organization that has like a list of, doctors that are mold literate and things like that.
Okay.
So an idea is now turned into viral videos, monetization in other ways, but more so a lot more education that the public and the audience and community you guys have developed. And you've said you wrote 3 books. And what time span did you write these books? To be fair, you guys are 2 smart individuals. And the fact that you're married together as a couple makes it even like more of a superpower. So give me the dates of these books and releases, or at least as accurate as you can. I just want to pinpoint exactly how much information they have and how much they can get it out to the public to help people in a educational, fun, and quick way.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want really how long it took?
Like break it down that it's going to be.
I know the dates of you.
Yeah, go for it. See, they're smart. They remember the days too.
Well, I don't remember the actual days.
I can tell
but we finished the rough draft of the mold book 2 weeks after we finished the Candida book.
Okay. That's pretty darn quick.
It was 2 weeks of intense writing where we didn't do anything else.
Did you take off work or like?
Well, at that point, I was already retired. So
Yes, what's up? Yeah. Good. All right.
Yeah, we did it full time.
Retired.
Yeah. I did. I retired from a startup.
Well, true. You retired from that job onto other. Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
I understand.
Here comes
Yeah.
the disagreement.
Here comes the marriage.
No,
Please
I love the
expand on
terminology. Yeah, no. But seriously, no, I mean, I couldn't write these books. So, like, most people take several years to put out a book.
Right.
I mean, realistically. So, I couldn't have done this without Andrew.
Well, she came to me after the her viral Candida post and was like, "We need to write this book. I have some clients this week. Can you help me?" And so I got it kicked off and started putting the rough draft together, got the research articles that we needed, that kind of stuff, and then we refined it over the 2-week process till it was getting approachable for publication. And then quickly after that, she's like, "All right, we need the mold book then as well." And so she, did all of the final processing for,
But it was true.
all of the Candida book stuff. And I started the rough draft of the next book. And then, she joined me with that, a couple days later. And then we pumped out that book in, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so the Inner Journey, which we have not mentioned, is our gut health handbook that we put out fall of 23, like October 23, I think. and then which we're working on the second version of that right now. So, and then Candida Detox was published in July 24. And Conquering Mold was published October 24.
Okay.
It would have been like a month before that, only I polled my lovely audience, I love all of them, about the cover. And there were a lot of different opinions, and I really wanted to take them into account. So we took quite some time to make sure that the cover art, and we got photos for the inside of the book and charts and everything, and to make sure like those pieces were just how we wanted them to be. So really, we spent a few weeks on that, but that was worth it.
The Candida book was really quick and dirty, meant to follow the success of her, one video. And the Mold book was meant to be kind of like a flagship for her brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of, this is my authority in this space, this 370-page book versus the Candida book that was only
It's
like
like
7 or 100 pages,
yeah.
something
Got
like
it.
that.
It's like a
Yeah.
handbook.
So there was a lot of, after the rough draft was done in that 2-week period, right? She and I refined it extensively and, got a bunch of like custom artwork done. And, she did a campaign with her followers and like a bunch of lives to, hype up the book before releasing it, which is like that 3-month window from when it was done to when it released.
So talk about testing a marriage. You didn't just do one. You did 3 in like 3 months, it sounds like, to knock it out. But to your point, there was a need. You have a community, and once you build that, and sometimes it happens fast, and sometimes it takes a long time. You built it. You want to be able to engage with them, supply them the demand, and go with that. So now with the books, where can they purchase them? Where are they available at?
So this is really exciting. We can say this today. So, well, they're on Amazon.
Okay.
So yeah, but the books will be on Audible soon.
Nice.
So because people have been asking for that, and medical terms don't get translated to verbal speech well by just Amazon's translation of it. So we've been working on that. So within the next couple weeks, they should be the version that we have approved should be available for audio book as well.
Do you get to pick the voice? Male, female?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
you do.
So.
Is it you?
It's not. I didn't go to a studio and record those 5 hours of that book, but someday maybe I will do that. But definitely wanted to get that out there because that has been one of the top requests is the audiobook because
That's huge.
Obvious reasons. So that's kind of the next thing that's coming out soon. And then, lots of projects on the horizon.
That's good.
Like I said, courses, second edition of The Inner Journey, because there's always new research. I mean, this field that, we're now in, functional medicine, functional health is, new research.
And you just said something there. How long has mold research been around? Roughly, do you know?
Yeah, so when we were putting together articles for the mold book, I mean, there has been research that has been there for decades.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
just a matter of, it's mostly animal studies and, there's a lot of like politics and money stuff involved with like, oh, if we say that this can happen to people if they live in moldy environments, then like what are the implications for that and who's responsible for that? And it's just gets super messy very, very quickly. So yeah, I mean, the research is there. And I mean, there's new research articles every week on mold.
Also, just think about penicillin from Penicillium mold is a metabolite of mold and discovered 100 years ago.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah. So there's been mold or research into mold for at least 100 years now.
Yeah.
With that being said, you put out all this positive information to help, right? What negative feedback? What haters have been just going on your comments and just like attacking you?
I've read your comments.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I love it because I'm like, bring on the haters.
Yeah.
Because that is, if there's no emotion, then it's, nothing
People aren't
gets done.
engaging.
People aren't engaging.
That's true.
I want, because oftentimes, I can convince people frequently with science, that, it's like, well, we don't want to believe a lot of times that a lot of these things can affect us. We want to believe that it's only viruses and bacteria and we can fit everything into this nice little box. But there are a lot of factors, in our environment that can affect us. And so if people are, hating in my comments, I say, bring it on. I love a good debate. And, if I can't find the answer to your question, then I will research it. And, I don't know everything, but I have researched a lot on mold, and we, sometimes I'll direct them to the book. It's like, learn more. It's great that people even want to just throw out their opinion out there, and maybe they're ready to learn something. If they're not, then maybe they will be tomorrow.
In my opinion, the biggest reason why there are haters, period, of this, of mold and functional medicine in general, is something we actually address in the book directly, and it is, again, in my opinion, there is the conventional medical model that we all deal with, right? You see a doctor, you expect to get a medication or a pill or something to fix whatever your issue is. Mm-hmm. That's been the medical model in the United States for roughly 100 years. And it's like, a very intricate partnership between a lot of, U.S. interests. And that's great for a lot of use cases, but, what Dianna deals with and mold in a general sense and functional medicine is really about root cause medicine and not using a pill to treat a symptom.
Yep.
It is figuring out whatever the root cause is. And that requires a shift in how you can, conceptualize your health and everything that you do, because it really places responsibility on the individual for knowing everything you do and how that interacts with your body and your health. And that's a large burden for people to have. And oftentimes when you kind of attack people at their core values and like the way that they conceptualize their life and reality, right, that can stir some pretty strong emotional responses. Mm-hmm. And, you can see that.
Yeah, because I saw it somewhere, I can't remember what podcast, where they say you don't need a doctor, you need a biologist to take care of your body.
Sure.
Because that's what you are.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Versus what you were just saying, the doctor's just going to hand you medicine for the symptoms and not the actual cause.
Yep.
Why is your body, the biology, reacting certain ways?
Exactly.
To different things.
Has any of this new research that you've been diving in on the past 2 years helped you with the symptoms that you've been experiencing almost your entire life? Like, have you figured something out that, I wish I knew this 10, 15 years ago? Like,
how's this guy been doing, right? Like, we forgot about him, right? He did have
I didn't. I was waiting the right time.
Well, yeah, and I think it's been incredibly important because, I keep, written track of my progress. And
Can you have ice cream?
So I have dairy-free ice cream, right?
Okay.
Like coconut milk type ice cream.
Okay.
Or like cashew milk or one of the alternatives. Mainly, I could have dairy-based products.
All
I
right.
can tolerate them now. I can digest them. I don't have an immune reaction to them. However, dairy is immune stimulating for a lot of people. And I'm still predisposed to having reactions to things, even though I don't currently have a lot of reactions to them. So yeah, I could have dairy. But again, yeah, a lot of the research and a lot of the testing that I've done through supplements, through diet, through other interventions, right, like fasting and cold plunge and things like that, are things that Dianna and I then discuss, and she can directly roll in the feedback from my experiences with them into her conceptualization of how to treat patients. And so I'm providing her research basically to fuel her her practice.
Yeah, definitely taking one for the team
Yeah,
there.
because you got to talk to Edwin Rodriguez if he'll see this. But that guy, he's like, we were talking about this 2 days ago. He's like, I think it might be mold in my house. While I'm having the systems, he has stomach issues all the time.
Yeah.
And then when you mentioned that, and he has this little picture from his shower, little thing of mold, right? And he's only like this tall, so he can't reach in.
He's also bald like him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I was like, actually, we're going to have her on today. You could talk to her, but he already had these appointments set up so he couldn't meet you.
Well, it's super common to cause gut issues or, like I said, just exacerbate or worsen
It's very
pre-existing gut issues.
Yeah, it's very random. And he knows. We'll just get the random group chat text. I'm not making the office stomach problems or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's affecting his daily life, then he should definitely look into all things that could be worsening his gut, including mold for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was some of the things that helped you, though? Like outside of cold plunging, saunas and everything, was there any ingestion of natural anything? Like what was the treatment, for lack of better words?
So treating mold in a general sense is about detoxifying. Mm-hmm. And so it's about boosting your detoxification systems, right? Okay. So your kidneys, because you excrete through urine, your gut, and your lungs, right? You have to breathe in and out clean air. And so boosting those systems and then also mobilizing the mold where it is in your body. So most people store mold in fatty tissue because that's where your body stores everything that it doesn't know how to deal with at the moment. So if you're ingesting a lot of mold or you're exposed to mold on a great deal or regular basis, then you're going to have a lot of it stored in fat. And a lot of people who get these exposures develop obesity. And so that was one thing, if you look at photos of Dianna and I when we lived in Maryland, is that I was 185 pounds. Like I was 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. Right?
Wow.
And it was all
like
fat.
Puffy.
And yeah, very puffy, bloated looking, also kind of like, sallow and sick looking as well.
Okay.
And so a part of the treatment process for me was, a thorough detoxification process. And I followed a program that's meant for something called SEERS. And SEERS is kind of like a specific, like niche diagnosis that you can get within the mold field. And it's chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And so that really means you have an improper immune response, because you brought up the immune response earlier, right? And how genetics can kind of like play a role. And so you need that faulty immune response, and then you need a trigger, right? And so mold and then toxins like ciguatera and other toxins like that can trigger this SEERS complex. And then it triggers that kind of chronic inflammatory cycle. And so part of the treatment for that is using a lot of binders. And so that's what we talk about in the book. And I used a wide variety of binders, from things like charcoal and zeolite clay to prescription binders like Welchol, right? And those bound a lot of the toxins that are in my gut that would be causing like the gut issues in your body, because those mycotoxins can get either embedded in the cell wall or in the mucus lining, because everyone's gut has like a thick layer of mucus in there, and just get stuck in there. And then if you're not detoxifying properly, or you just have like really chronic exposure, they just sit there and they continuously degrade, your human cells in your gut and cause issues. So I detoxed from that. And then a lot of my systems started coming back and functioning better and more normally. And then I continued to take supplements that boosted various organ systems. I've done like IV nutrition therapies of a variety of types. And I mean, I have a list of about 200 different supplements and interventions that I've tested to boost my health, but there's a lot of them out there that are really beneficial.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to start today, right? They're just feeling a bunch of the different ways we'll be talking about with their stomach, whether they just feel down or whatever. What would be a generic response that you would give them? Hey, start doing this and let's see how it works over the next few weeks.
I mean, there's so many different ways to look at that. And there's so many different action steps that people can take. I did want to say though too, and this is interesting because in functional health, we do a lot through supplements. Just to kind of like step back on that for a second, it's not a lot of like prescriptions. So it's a lot of natural supplements, working with your body. As you heard Andrew say, most of the stuff he's done has been natural supplements that have helped him, and then other interventions and different foods and just kind of tweaking levels of all those things and amounts. But yeah, I mean, if someone wants to just start feeling better today, I would say look at what is holding you back from feeling better, whether it is, it can be anything. I'm talking like if you're, the first thing that comes to your mind, is it like a trauma that you need to kind of process? Is it, I think that when I'm at home, I'm maybe mold there, or like something in the air, or I feel worse at home, or I feel worse when I'm at work or whatever. Like think about what is holding you back from feeling well. Like if you think, okay, I don't feel good when I wake up, and then you're like, okay, well, I need to work on my sleep. Mm-hmm. So then targeting, one thing that's really kind of that most annoying or most proximal thing that's really preventing you from having a good day. So it could be, starting to do a little bit of exercise, or eating a little bit cleaner, making one healthy swap, swapping out your grain for something, like vegetables, adding more vegetables, things like that. So the first step is not, for me, going to even be any kind of medication or supplement. It would be looking at the environment and looking at like lifestyle factors, like dietary and sleep and, your relationships and things like that, and nervous system, like are you in fight or flight? So kind of just low-hanging fruit, like seeing what is really blocking you from feeling well.
From the last time that we met, it's been a while since we've seen each other in person. We see each other online all the time, but I was like 35 pounds heavier. I don't know if y'all remember that. So I targeted something that I know I needed to do, and I was just a fat ass. I wasn't paying attention, is what I like to say. I was just eating. I was working. Life's good, don't get me wrong, but I understood that I needed to make a change. So that change was, like you just said, targeting something. Let me just go to the damn gym. Like shit, I just wasn't doing that. The clarity I get in my mind and how I can effectively serve more families and be more present for mine almost changed instantly. Like the physical appearance is second, but that changed everything. And I knew that just in where life happens is what I like to say a lot. Boom, did that. But then obviously I changed my eating habits as well. That helped. Don't get me wrong, I'll have a drink every once in a while, but I can count on one hand the amount of times I've drank this year. That's fine, right? So not eliminating everything, but paying attention is what I always like to say, because most of us don't, because we're just going through the day-by-day motions, right? Because we have kids, we have life, et cetera, et cetera. But you sound like you've identified something that the name of this podcast is called Your Peak Life Podcast, okay? And Your Peak Life Podcast started with, we were interviewing a lot of realtors in the area, and we realized quickly, well, when I came on the show, I realized quickly, I'm like, it's not just real estate that people have peak lives in. And in lives, there's peaks and valleys, right? So right now, I met you guys. Initially, I think you were kind of coming up from a valley. You moved here, the noise, you didn't like it, whatever. We were looking at potentially shifting, but you were shifting where you guys wanted to go in a profession as well, because you wanted to go in this direction. I feel now that you've hit another peak. You're killing it on social media. You got 3 books in like 2 days that came out. You have 3 amazing kids at home. You're doing very well. Like, what's next? What's the next peak? Because that's what happens, right? We hit a peak and it's like, what's next? I know that about you, because like she's over there, she's like, you're not really retired because you do something else. No, you see, you hit something, you killed it, and now you're doing something else. Because that's how I do it. That's how he does it. That's how a lot of people that just have the want in them continue to do.
Yep.
So like, what's the next step for the Staffords outside of just taking over Northern Virginia?
I mean, scaling. We're really just taking the lovely and wonderful community that, we built and I built on the internet and just 10xing that. I really just want to connect with more people, bring this word out to more people. And there's certain, behind the scenes business things that we are actively doing to do that. And, we'll be rolling out a lot of projects here soon, but I think it's just expanding, reaching more people, and just connecting with more and more people about this.
So she and I actually do some, planning both for business and for life, right? And so we have kind of like a shared, Trello board, Trello?
Yeah.
So we have like a shared Trello board that's based off, some piece of paper. Like we just, had a dinner date night and we wrote down like different domains of our lives that we wanted to discuss and kind of like visualize the future for. So we have like our family goals, like our goals for our kids, both in terms of, their, self-actualization and like all that stuff. But like specifically like educational goals and like sports related goals and all of that. And then we have similar ones for our personal development. And then we have ones for our relationships, right? And then we have ones for, kind of like our community. And we do this on a yearly basis. But like these are all broken down into kind of subtasks that are then, used on the Trello board and other methods for us to kind of like complete those subtask components that then get rolled into kind of like the overarching vision of where we want to move forward to, right? So we have a lot of these. I think we ended up with like 50 or 60 total entries on there for like things that we want for our lives. And it includes, scaling the business. It includes traveling. It includes our kids getting into school. And like, we're now seeing these things being actualized as our son just, got into old donation.
Nice. ODC?
That for the middle school, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
What grade?
He's going to be in 6th next year.
Oh, okay. My kid's a little younger, but
Okay.
he's there. Great school.
Awesome.
Yeah. But we're hitting the business goals as well and scaling there and hitting friendship goals and networking within the community and, with other like-minded professionals and all of that. And so we just break down those shared goals and move forward.
So this podcast is going to air in a few weeks. And people know this, like when we put it out there, we have, a bunch in the Rolodex when we air this out. One of the things that you guys are doing really good at is being in front of people. We all have these. So as long as we kind of know how to use them, in theory, you'll be seen, right? So for tonight, you've heard of the Dome at the beach. Mm-hmm. So I'm hosting the grand opening of that tonight, which is huge for me. And just because it's so full circle that I was here back in the day. You remember the Dome back in the day. You lived here.
Yeah.
It was at the beach. It closed in like 90s, right? Yeah. Now that fast forward 30 years, we have a newer version of that. And I was going through my grandmother's house this past weekend. We're finally cleaning it out, getting it ready to rent and everything. I found a newspaper article. It was a copy of it. It wasn't the original one. You'll laugh at this. I didn't tell you this yet. My grandmother used to make my Halloween outfits. Okay. That's just where we were at our lives back then. But she was really handy with the sewing machine. Abuela knew what she was doing. They had a Halloween contest at the Dome. And the Dome, I won the Halloween contest. But before I tell you what I was dressed as, I was like a 5-6-year-old kid. Think about in the late 80s. What would you think I was? 'Cause I know you're going to say something stupid.
Alf.
No. Just take a
You
guess.
look just like him.
See, I knew you were going to say something stupid.
A robot.
It was definitely on a kid's show, like something that was related.
Oh.
Okay, you were
There you
on
go.
the kid's
That's
show, but not
good.
Alf
That's good.
for the second time.
Barney.
No, I wasn't a big purple dinosaur, but you're on the right track.
A Ghostbuster.
I would have wished that was that.
Yeah.
I was Oscar the Grouch.
Oh yeah.
And I'm talking about I had like the tin can head, all this green moss coming off me, like the paint,
Nice.
and I looked so miserable in that picture. That's the funny part. I was just in there like this. And newspaper, that was the news back then. They only had
Yeah.
the
Yes.
tube and that.
Yep.
Why I bring this up, and God rest her soul, I love that she did that. She did that with me for every year. I was Phantom of the Opera one year. Like we're talking about, like she took the time, like she was a Hollywood artist, making me look like these things for. I was her little kid doll. Like that's what I feel. She looked at me like that then. I bring this up because it's full circle that now I get to be at the grand opening of something tonight with 5,000 people, and I'm on stage talking about that because I love the city that I was raised in, and we get to do that. But I'm in front of people so they can see me, so I can continue to give back in a certain way. Right after that, I have to drive to Norfolk, well, right in the middle of it, to go to Chartway Arena because I volunteer every year to host the big gala for the Rock Solid Foundation. And if you're not familiar with what they are, they help children fight childhood cancer with hope. And Eric Newman, he's a cancer survivor. He started this when he survived, and he's launched this organization, and now it's gone national. But I remember when he was here. And I bring this up because you're going to remember when you were here, and then it just continues to grow. And that feeling is, you're already getting a feeling. It's like you have small wins along the way, and there's really no huge win because it's like, what's the next peak? What's the next one? But you're on a journey of, you came back to the area, nostalgically, you for at least, you grew up here, you came here, you liked the area, you loved it, but now you've taken it to another realm where you're going to grow bigger than this area, and you're going to go on book tours, guys. You guys are going to go and talk on stages. Like, I see this happening, and I'm putting it into speaking into existence because it's going to happen. But you had to start somewhere, and something happened. It was God's will that you met. She knew you had gut health problems. It was God's will. You met her. She was in med school. She said yes to go all the way to the West Side. And it's God's will for you guys to come back because paying for daycare in San Diego is probably triple the expense than being out here.
Yep.
And not having people to help you is huge. Having family, you can't put a price on that, bro. And on top of that, them being able to engage and being present is big. And it was all meant to, we met. And then it was all meant that, hey, I think I'm gonna start this channel. And now we're here. It's just all part of the chapters. And like, I remember these things on purpose because these are small wins along the way. And we're stoked to see you continue to win because you guys are gonna continue to win. You got 3 books right now currently on Amazon that you can buy. What are the names again?
The Inner Journey Gut Health Handbook, Candida, Detox, and Conquering Mold.
And they're all available on Amazon right now. And then coming out in Audible soon.
Yes.
Which is dope. Probably by the time this comes out, we might be able to do it. That'd be even cool. That'd be awesome. And then are you in a position right now you can secretly say one of the next projects that are going to be like breaking this year for 25 that you want to kind of just let our audience know about?
Do you want to talk about HEA?
So I've partnered with a health business organization called HEA, which is Health Experts Alliance. And it's just a lot of functional practitioners and so of like-minded practitioners. And so I'm just going to be doing a lot of collaboration with them. And it's people, across the country and world. And so I've just met up with them in person. And so just be looking for a lot more collaborations and a lot more growth in that area.
Nice.
But I love what you said because our brains don't know the difference between something that's actually happened and something that we've conceptualized and spoken into reality. So I love what you said about that perception and speaking it into existence.
It's gonna happen.
So real.
You're in the frame right now.
Literally, it's gonna happen. When I met you guys, I wasn't an owner of a company. Now we're an owner of a company, and we have 7 locations and over 350 agents.
so
To be fair, they allowed me to come into this, and I just helped take to the next level. The only thing I won't do is shave my head to be like him.
It's so amazing to
So
see
easy.
like what to follow you as well and to see like what you've done over the past couple of years since we've connected. It's just been wonderful to see, the explosion as well with all of this, Iron Valley and with your show and everything. So I love it. Next level, definitely. Always leveling up.
Always.
Yes.
No, complacency is the worst drug in the world, is what I say.
So true.
And realistically, none of us in this room are that. So one last thing, what do you want to say to our audience before we leave? Because we want to make sure that they know where to find you. So more importantly, selfishly, talk about your handles, TikTok, your IGs, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. So I'm the Detox Doc on social media, all platforms. So you can find me there, drstafford.com. The book's on Amazon. And you can find Andrew on my pages as well.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
For the most part.
He's her husband and manager, just to be clear, and agent and everything else, just
He's
to be
the
clear. And the
business
author
side of
and the producer. Anyways, they're a squad. There's a team. The Staffords in the house. Again, Andrew, last thing, just so you want to pump something out there.
I don't have a lot of socials, but
Okay.
I do have a lot of companies. The one that I've been working on most recently is Your AI Group, which is AI automation for social media and business. Integrating automated workflows and AI agents into basically every business that exists. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Was that what's the website for that, or is that not yet?
YourAIgroup.com.
YourAIgroup.com. Got you. Guys, thank you for being on the show today. Seriously,
Thank you
we
so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks for inviting us.
Of course. Andrew Stafford, Dianna Stafford, aka the Detox Doc, Edgar, the Sphere, Cul-de-sac Munoz, DJ Julian Rivera signing out. See you guys next time.